Episode 118, All About the Bad Guys. You're listening to the Visionary Variety Podcast, and in this week's episode, we're going to be discussing the bad guys, evil characters in fiction, human nature, and why do people love the dark side so dang much? Well, let's get to it. Welcome to the Visionary Variety Podcast, where we cover cool stuff like photo, video, film, books, and technology. So switch on your brain and enjoy the show. All right, before we get started in the discussion, let's do a roll call for everyone that's here. Who's here and what did you have for breakfast?
This is Joe from Pop Culture Geekery, and I made my own breakfast tacos this morning.
Ooh,
Yum.
nice. What's your favorite kind? Now I got to know.
There's one that I have a local place in town make. I just basically call it the super taco because I have them put everything in it, like
Awesome.
like eggs, potato, chorizo, like everything.
Yes.
Pico de gallo. It's amazing.
Man, I remember the Napolitos restaurant in New Braunfels in high school, at least. They had this like foot-long taco.
Yeah.
It was huge.
It's still there.
Hey, my name is Gabriel, and for breakfast this morning, I think I stole a little cereal from my daughter, had a banana, 5 eggs, put some sour cream and cheese in there, had a protein shake, had my BCAAs.
Oh my gosh.
It was a big breakfast. I was doing a workout for my clients, doing live videos, so got to be fueled up. Yeah.
Well, this is Daniel, obviously. I had peanut butter and jelly toast, which I really like. I ate a banana with some dark chocolate chips and some milk, which is like one of my favorite snacks. And I like to believe it's a little bit healthy. Most of it is. Dark chocolate's good for you, right?
Yes.
That's a myth that I'm not going to look up to disprove myself.
I was thinking about the nurse in Harry Potter. She says the Muggles haven't figured out that chocolate cures a lot of things. So
I like that.
Eat more chocolate. Well, the idea for this episode came out of the fact that my wife and I finally watched Brightburn. When did it come out? Like 2014?
No. It was just
ago.
It was last year.
2019,
What?
2018?
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, I just feel like it was older.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Maybe I looked at...
Yeah, because we have a review on it from last year. I just barely launched the channel last March, so
Yeah, weird. Well, there goes that. I see movies much later than they normally come out. So this is actually much sooner than usual. I usually see things like 2-3 years after it comes out. I've been wanting to watch this for a long time. I knew the gist of it. I tried to avoid the details so I could be surprised. We don't watch horror. We don't watch scary stuff or even suspense. We don't watch a lot of suspense either. So I knew this would be a little different than what we're used to. And it definitely was. There were some moments where we're like,
Yes.
oh, wow, that was in there. That did not need to be there or shown for that long. Outside of our comfort zone for sure. But after seeing this, the topic of evil and bad guys and nature versus nurture and all the, rabbit trail discussions that come after that were in my head concerning fictional villains, but also as it applies to real world, you and I, human nature, evil people today. Or rather the evil in all of us. And so I really wanted to do an episode and just attempt to chip away at this glacier of a discussion and see what you guys have to say about the topic. Maybe we'll disagree, maybe we'll agree, we'll see. But yeah, let's get started with a little bit of talk about Brightburn and then we'll get on with the rest of it. So how did each of you guys feel about the movie Brightburn?
I mean, I liked it, because obviously following the character that it's modeled after, which is Superman. This is not the first time that I've seen, not necessarily just only an evil take on Superman. I mean, that seems to be the popular thing just because Superman's such a symbol of good that, most writers
Let's
are like,
corrupt him.
Yeah, most writers are like, let's do that, So yeah, I know I enjoyed it. I for the most part, I usually enjoy when it's almost like I'm like, okay, if you're gonna really do this, let me see what you got, basically,
Yeah,
I liked it a lot. Or really only in the idea of let's make a twist and but then the rest of it kind of I don't know. I didn't really. I wasn't too sold on it. And the very end, I don't know if we're doing spoilers yet, but the very end was kind of neat. Like, oh, okay, he's on the news, and his thing is becoming global. I guess they didn't really express it well enough. If it was like a cult kind of demonic twist to his twisting, or if it was just purely technological. I'm not really sure. So I was kind of lost. I wasn't too sure how to make up my mind if it was more of a cultish, demonic kind of suspense movie I was watching, or if it was purely just like a superhero, supervillain movie I was watching. Wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing the take that they did on it. You know, it had some horror in there, had some gore, a lot of violence, things like that. It's weird. Like I enjoyed parts of it as a movie. I didn't really like the gore part after the car wreck.
Yeah.
And some of the other stuff, like the woman hanging on the wall, you know, after the waitress. Oh, by the way, spoilers.
Yeah.
It came out last year,
I
so
feel
it's
like,
fine.
yeah. For normal people that watch movies on time, shame on you for not seeing it yet. For me, that has 4 kids and never goes out of the house, it takes me about 5 years to see stuff. So. Now, this podcast has been a great excuse to go see movies quicker, though. So there's also that. It's my escape. I like the fact that they added some elements of psychology to his evil, but there was also some nature and some nurture. You know, he had stuff happen to him as a younger teenager, but also he kind of had a flip. He kind of had a switch flipped inside of him that says like this is like a nature thing. He came here evil. It was inside of him, and now it's coming out. Maybe I misinterpreted it. Maybe you know, there's a better interpretation of that. But yeah, I kind of liked how they handled that. So do you guys think that this version of Clark Kent, because let's be honest, this is a different take on Clark Kent. This is a Superman variation without copyright infringement. Do you think that this version of Clark Kent is more realistic? Like, is this what would more likely happen versus the traditional nice Clark Kent?
I would say no.
Gabe, what about you?
That's an easy answer. No. I think the nature of Clark Kent being Kryptonian, maybe their sense of justice and good is maybe stronger. So maybe he's less corruptible, even if really bad circumstances, depending on the universe of Superman, you know, his dad dying or whatever, and however he died. I think the Clark Kent might be a little less susceptible to his psychology being twisted towards the negative side. But I think, again, Mary Sue kind of thing with Superman and Clark Kent, everything kind of works out for him, and he's always good no matter what.
Yeah, I think it would really depend on how the kid is raised. Now, there's that sci-fi element of the nature part added where it's like he gets that signal from the spaceship and boom, his evilness is like activated or something. That's kind of the fictional element added here. But if we take that out, I think it will really depend on how you're raised.
Yeah.
And how you react to having this amazing powers. If you're a rotten kid and you get these powers, yeah, you're going to use them for evil stuff.
Sweet.
Like that's going to be, it's definitely, you're going to naturally go that way. You're not going to suddenly get this sense of justice and, you know, moral compass because you have superpowers. You're probably going to express what's already inside of you with your newfound ability and platforms. And that's just human nature. More on that later. But, you know, in the fictional, going back to the fictional world of comics specifically, there's been a lot of different takes on Superman. Joe, you recently watched, what is it, Red Sun? Tell us about that.
So Superman Red Sun is an Elseworld story where Superman is found by the Russian government instead of the Kents. And it really does play with that idea you're talking about, because in that movie, they, and also in the graphic novel before, they show that even though he's grown up in that world, as he learns about the rest of the world, as you know, he goes out and learns the other ideals in the world, he starts questioning what he's been taught. You know, because he was literally taught by Stalin in that world. So,
wow.
So in that respect, they were trying to show that yes, even in this world, Superman had a lot of outside influence, but he's still Superman at his core, and he fights that till the very end.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why it's hard to determine, because like with Brightburn, it just seems like that kid had a nature that was more akin to whatever whatever purpose that alien race had sent him to Earth for, which probably,
Right.
traditionally is conquering, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
vibe. And that's what I mean, because if I remember right, I'm pretty sure they treated him well. It's not like they beat him or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he had a good
Um,
upbringing.
yeah, so then it's the reverse. It's like on that one they show, okay, he had loving parents, but he had a
But his
something else,
nature.
yeah, something else within him
Yeah.
that just overrode everything.
Right. Well, you remember Goku's origin story in Dragon Ball. He
Mhm.
was sent from a warrior race, the Saiyans, planet Seiya, and came to conquer Earth. Uh, and there's a funny little, I think it's one of the movies where they send out the pods to each planet to take over. And the Saiyans who are sending it to Earth to say, planet Earth, what a weird name.
Yeah.
Then they click the button and it shoots the capsule out. I forgot, was that in the
That's
movies?
yeah,
Don't
Gabe?
remember.
that's Bardock. It's Bardock.
Bardock, yeah.
Mhm.
That's right. I love that little part. But yeah, Goku was in here. He bumped his head, I believe,
Yeah.
and he forgot, the nature part was taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
So he was raised good and with values, and thus he becomes like the super goodest guy ever.
Mhm.
Almost a Mary Sue, as Superman is. But that brings us more to the discussion of, when we're doing evil, when we see these people embracing the evil side, like I don't know, what is evil? What's your take on that?
I think I asked you this before we tried to record last time. I know both you
Yeah.
guys are believers, so am I. So,
Mhm.
I've learned a lot about, what evil is from that perspective. But of course, at some point,
Right.
I had to question too, well, what is it even beyond, just the faces of evil that we've been taught? What's at its core? And what I came to the conclusion, it's selfishness, because,
Mm.
the Bible calls us to be selfless. So the opposite of that
Mhm.
would be selfish. And if you look at the motivation of most villains, it's that they want to take something from someone else, whether it be their freedom or their
Yeah.
possessions or land or whatever it is. It's they're taking something away that didn't belong to them to begin with. So that's
Mhm.
more of a selfish act. And then of course, we put the label of evil on it because it's just a quick way to say, hey, I don't agree with this. It's like, and that's
Yeah.
why you have people rise up against it because it disrupts, their selfishness disrupts the order of things.
It benefits them, but it hurts everyone else around you.
Exactly.
Well, I think from a Christian apologetics philosophy perspective, I've given a lot of time to study and follow kind of the words of Frank Turek and Ravi Zacharias, and both of
Yeah.
them kind of come to the same conclusion that the evil is just the absence of good. And
Mhm.
to kind of give me a visual representation, is I always tell people that are kind of searching and looking for a reason to understand this, or just to plainly understand it. I always say that evil is the shadow cast against free will. So good is the light, free will is obstructing, could obstruct good, and that obstruction casts a shadow, which we would call evil. So evil wouldn't exist if we didn't have free will, and using that free will in the wrong way would cause selfishness in this manner. So, yeah, I think it's evil is a necessity of human nature, or else we just wouldn't have a
Mhm.
choice. It's a byproduct of our fallen nature.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize the fact that everyone has a potential for great evil in them.
Oh yeah,
It's up to your decisions. It's up to how you harness your free will. And we don't have the superpowers that Brightburn had or any superhero, supervillain had, but we still have opportunity to make decisions and influence the world around us. And so if we give into the what we believe are the natural desires, which are towards evil, it's much easier. It's way easier to give into that. It's
hmm
easier to be selfish. You don't have to teach a baby to do selfish things or hurt people or steal or just be self-centered 100%. That's what babies are. And unfortunately that'll turn into a baby adult if you don't discipline them and raise them the other way towards what's right. That's something that I like to point people towards if we get into that discussion of, the human nature ideal of Christianity, which is very unique. Other worldviews, more popular ones in secularism, is almost the opposite. It says,
yeah,
oh, we're actually good at our heart, but evil comes in through society and through trauma and things. But, we believe that evil's always been there since the beginning, since the first decision that Adam and Eve made that influenced all of us and kind of went down the line. but we're born with the evil, and we need to deal with that by bringing it to God and, using our will in the right direction. That was a good rabbit trail. I've lost my trail halfway through, but I wish I could draw a little flowchart of where I was going with that. Oh, here we go. So I've always said that we all have the potential to be Hitler, or insert any, Stalin, insert any evil person throughout history, terrorist, you name it. We all have the potential to be that person. But what matters is what we've done with what we've been given. And of course, outside influences, can steer us to some percentage, but ultimately it's up to us. And Gabriel, what you were getting towards was that how do we know what evil is unless we know what absolute good is? We have to have some grounds and some foundation on what good and righteousness and perfection is in order to point at darkness and say, that's darkness right there. Or rather, that is an evil thing, that's sin, that's bad, whatever. But we can't do that, right? Unless we have a foundation of what good is, which is, God.
I always say morality is objective because you can't say that that's wrong unless you know what's right. Mm-hmm. And to deny that the difference between good and evil, that's just faulty logic. You're just lying to yourself. You really do know.
Let's turn the discussion to a different direction for a little bit. Villain-led movies. Do you think it's about time we see some? Do you want that to happen? Or is that something we don't really need?
I think we've been seeing a little bit more.
You mean like the Joker movie?
From an entertainment standpoint, not really a moral or other standpoints. I feel like it's about time we see some other takes on the superhero worlds. I would like to see what are things looking like from the perspective of the bad guy. I don't necessarily want to sympathize with them because I feel really uncomfortable when that is forced on me. That happens a little bit in the Joker. You kind of start feeling for the guy and you're like, man, this guy was a total victim. But then you're like, but he did these things, or, in other fictional universes, the Joker is always an absolute bad guy. We're not supposed to feel bad for him, So there's a lot of mixed feelings when they do almost too good of a job at making a villain story because you start to feel for him. Like with the Empire, with Star Wars, there's a few stories that kind of take you down this route where you start to understand, hey, the Empire was actually a governmental system. They actually did some good and stabilized and provided for some planets out there and people that didn't have anything, that maybe the Republic or that wasn't able to help. And the people inside the Empire, they of course only see it as a good system and all the great stuff. But then you zoom out and you're like, whoa, wait, they're the bad guys. And the Jedis and the rebels who look like terrorists are actually the good guys fighting for good. And there's this weird, headbutting of some people that kind of try to point that out.
In the American Revolution, we looked like terrorists to the British.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, totally.
Exactly. So you see where I'm going. This kind of came out in the Battlefront 2 game and the novel. There's a novelization of the game, and I listened to it. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Engadget did a review of this, and this is what they said. They said, the game's teaser trailer showed Iden Versio, an Imperial pilot, standing on the Force Moon of Endor, watching the second Death Star explode at the end of Return of the Jedi. It has a dark tone revealing the story of a villain hell-bent on revenge, but that's not how actually playing the game feels. Settled behind Versio's eyes during the game's E3 demo, I didn't feel like an imperialist oppressing the freedom of justified rebellion. I felt like a hero at war with a band of cowardly terrorists. It's a strange feeling. For decades, Star Wars fans have been told the Galactic Empire is faceless and objectively evil, but the game's campaign is built around set pieces and characters that lend it to the sense of adventure you would expect from a hero's journey. So, kind of forces you to be the bad guy and to like it.
Yeah.
They never really come out and say, hey, what we're doing is wrong because we're on the wrong side.
And I've never played it, but it sounds like Force Awakens. Sounds like you're playing that character and he's kind of a bad guy, bad clone that has escaped Darth Vader's labs.
You mean Force Unleashed?
Force Unleashed, yeah. Yeah.
Easy to confuse.
Awaken, oh jeez.
In our previous episodes, we talked about how confusing the names are of the sequel trilogy. Really we just mashed them all together, made one big super name. It was funny. Yeah, so in Star Wars, let's talk about Star Wars for a little bit. I know all three of us love Star Wars. Why do people love the dark side so much? It's annoying.
I know. I think it's like, for me personally, I think it's the curiosity of freedom to explore the Force. Like I want the lightning. I mean, I don't know if you can be on the light side, on the good side.
I want a red saber.
Yeah. I want those cool things. I want to be able to do those powers that I've read, like these tables and charts of all the dark side powers. Like, I want that. And then I read all the powers that the light side have. Those are kind of boring.
They
I
can
want
jump.
the dark side powers. Yeah, they shoot super jumps, and that's about
And they're
it.
great black outfits. Man, they got some good tailors.
Sweet.
I mean, plus you've seen the meme, the dark side has cookies, so that's, the main draw right there.
Yeah, I recently posted on Facebook group, and it was about original characters. And I said, because I posted a picture of me that I photoshopped of myself as kind of a made up Jedi character that I had in my headcanon. And I encourage others to, hey, share your pictures, or if you don't, just your story of, your original character that you would like to be or write about, whatever. And like 90% of them were dark side characters. I'm not exaggerating. Every time I saw a Jedi, I was like, yay, a Jedi. And I wrote them, I was like, hey, it's good to see a light side user here.
Yeah.
But man, so many people were just, they fantasize they want to be a Sith. And I just don't get it. I'm like, if you want to have a cool outfit, okay, you can have it. You want a red saber? Sure. Find corrupt a crystal or whatever. Find one off a bad guy and use it. But do you want to be a bad guy doing bad guy things? I don't understand how people team up with that worldview. I just don't.
Yoda answered that question. Remember, Luke asked him if the dark side was more powerful. He said, no, it's just easier and more seductive.
Oh, so true. They've given in.
And it goes, well, that's what I'm saying. It goes with what we were talking about earlier. It's more of a self-centered, selfish thing,
Yes.
because you can.
Yeah, being a Jedi is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. You can clearly see.
Not using the Force.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a Jedi. Let's just talk about being a light side Force user. Not using the word Jedi, because then that's kind of like a weird, bad thing now after episode 8. A light side Force user is still hard. You have to have self-control, and you have to have ideals and stick to them and help people when you want to help yourself.
Yeah, self-denial kind of pushes you more towards the light side. It's all about selflessness, self-denial, self-control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hate that.
Which is definitely a Christian. Yeah, it's so hard. It's definitely a Christian ideal. Now, Star Wars takes it to another level and turns it a little more into a New Age idea, where you're so selfless that you're almost like nothing. You're becoming one with everything, and that's where we get into like New Age stuff. But there's so many Christian ideals in the Star Wars universe, and that's one of the things that I really love about the Star Wars universe and the whole Jedi culture and myth. Is that a lot of it, not all of it, can replicate Christian morals, and I think that's great. Now, this is a different discussion, but it was a good one I had on a different post where I asked about what would you like to happen after episode 9. And a lot of me and quite a few others were in agreement that like the term Jedi needs to go away, and we need to have a new light side Force using group that's good, that uses the Force, has lightsabers because they're awesome, but doesn't have to use the word Jedi. But that's an episode for another time, I think. Let's get back on track. But yeah, I just feel like so many people want to be the bad guy, and there's so much like paraphernalia Star Wars stuff sold to kids for Kylo Ren and Darth Vader. I just feel a little uncomfortable, like kids loving and saying, "I love Darth Vader. He's awesome." I'm like, yeah, but he killed kids.
Well, according to a report that I just saw today, he's no longer the most popular character in Star Wars. Apparently it's Baby Yoda, then the Mandalorian, and then Darth Vader. So,
ouch!
Yeah,
ouch. People are mistaking him.
Well, BB-8 got pushed off to the side, I guess.
Oh, I've got so many friends that dress up as Kylo Ren or as Revan, and they go to cons, and people that like Star Wars but don't really know it, they're like, "Hey, Darth Vader,
get away!"
Like, no, I'm Revan. It's different. Stop it. Or they'll call Darth Vader Kylo Ren, which is like even worse.
Oh, jeez.
There was a funny tweet by Donald Trump. Which one of his tweets don't make somebody giggle out there? But he's the ultimate troller. But some of he had like a family photo taken. I think it was around Halloween. And one of his sons was dressed up as a stormtrooper, and Mark Hamill commented,
"Oh no!"
And he's like, "You do realize your son is dressed up as, a servant of totalitarian whatever," and he just totally shot it down. Like, dang, Mark Hamill's calling him out. But it does make you think: why do we have kids dressed up as bad guys? I don't know. I know it's all fun; it's just fiction, but I don't know. My fandom is a little different because I have worldviews involved. And I can't fully love a character if they do bad things. I don't know. That's just me. You guys feel the same, or you disagree? What do you think?
I think it's a little different. Like if it'd be different if your child wanted to dress up like a Nazi soldier than a stormtrooper. so I think it's the fiction aspect for a lot of people. They don't consider like what you're talking about, the worldview. Getting into the underlying aspects of that character and the uniform and what it stands for. A lot of people just don't bother. They just want the pure entertainment. They think it's cool. So I get that too.
That's normal. I don't judge people for that.
Yeah.
That's just me. My fandom is a little different in the way I see things and feel about it. What about you, Joe?
No, I think it's probably more multifaceted than we probably want to get into. But one thing I thought about, I just during the quarantine, I don't know if you guys saw that that they released the ability to watch the 25th anniversary of the Phantom of the Opera for free on YouTube, and so we watched it. And it's just like if you've seen any other musical or play or anything, at the very end, once it's over, the actors come and they bow and whatever, and the guy who played the Phantom, got a standing ovation, and I've been at a Beauty and the Beast one where the guy who played Gaston got a standing ovation.
Oh my gosh.
So, it's one of those things. It's like,
boo.
Is it just because they know that it's a story and they're like, okay, he's not real, so like your brother just said, I'm not gonna.
So we can have fun.
Yeah, you're not gonna have a Hitler, Yeah, I don't know. I never got to see Jojo Rabbit, but apparently Taika Waititi did really good with that. So
I heard about that. That looks like a trip.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about motivations for villains yet, and I feel like that is a really big story element to origin stories and to the continuing character development, if there is any, of villains. And honestly, villains don't have a whole lot of character development. Usually, there's not a whole lot of change happening, or growth. They're bad and they stay that way. But the motivations is always something that intrigues me, even in the real world. Honestly, like when terrible things happen, grieve, be respectful towards those who died. But in the back of my head, I'm always wondering, what was the why? Why did this kid shoot up the school? Why did this person justify in their head making a bomb and blowing up the shopping center? I don't know. Motivations are so intriguing because it has to deal with almost like the deepest psychological level of evil. Is why, what's the why? So I looked this up and I found this website. It's called Darcy Pattinson with 2 T's, Pattinson.com, and she has 39 villain motivations.
Whoa.
she really thought this out.
5 or 6.
I know, right? Yeah, me too. Well, she got 39. So the first one, I'll just read like the first 5. You'll kind of get the idea.
Rank?
Yeah, according to her. And I disagree with some of these, but I'll read the first 5 just so you can get the gist of it. And go look it up if you're interested. So number 1, romance. I want to marry the princess. Number 2, revenge. Ruin the hero. Okay, I want to ruin the king. Want to be the best, or getting revenge for being put down. Number 3, to distinguish oneself. I want the princess to respect me. Number 4, to fit in or gain acceptance. I want to attend the princess's coronation and eat at her table. Number 5, justice. The king killed my mother, so the king must die. So kind of weird wording, but they're trying to be as vague so it can apply to any fictional story.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. There's also greed, fear, desperation, social cohesion, desire to better oneself, power to achieve a goal, escaping your destiny. Like you were cursed to go down and you're trying to escape it, whatever. So it's an interesting look at why villains do what they do. And honestly, I really wanted to kind of make a list of some of the villains that we're more familiar with and look at why they do what they did. So the first one I have on the list is Mr. Freeze, who is so underrated, so cool. Not in Batman versus Robin.
Unintended.
Not in Batman and Robin. Not that one.
Never
Freeze. Yeah, not the Arnold one. The one from the animated Batman series, which was so good.
Yeah, that was actually cool. I liked him a lot.
There's actually a podcast episode of a podcast that inspired this one. I love this podcast. It's called Strangers and Aliens. And there is an episode where they talk about all the appearances of Mr. Freeze in the animated show. And there's only like 3 or 4 episodes. And then they talk about some other, appearances of him in later series. He even comes back in Batman Beyond. Did you know that?
Oh, yes.
He's aging very well with his cryogenic suit. But Mr. Freeze has an interesting motivation because it's not all bad. He wants to preserve his wife who died. He wants to resurrect her ultimately, but he wants to keep her frozen, like permafrozen, until he can resurrect her with later technology.
Yeah, I pulled up my favorite quote from the animated series when he's talking to Batman about his motivations, and he says, "Think of it, Batman. to never walk again upon a summer's day with a hot wind in your face and a warm hand to hold. Oh yes, I'd kill for that.
Oh my god!
I remember that line. Yeah, the feels.
Yeah, I like your low voice, Joe. Just really fits Mr. Freeze pretty good too. I'll cast you with our voice drama, our audio drama. So yeah, he's doing the bad things. He's justifying it because, hey, I'm gonna kill for my wife. I want my wife to live. It's kind of this weird irony that he's allowing people to die or killing or trying to kill people because he wants to bring life to somebody else that he loves. So there's Mr. Freeze. Next is Thanos. We all know him, right? Still fresh in our mind. He wants to provide a sustainable future.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the tagline from like Elon Musk or something, but
too soon.
That is what he wants, is it not? He wants to provide a sustainable future for the galaxy at the expense of killing half of the living, sentient life. But it's in the small print.
Yeah.
And of course, throughout the movies, we see him explain himself time and time again. And, basically saying, hey, I know it's not great and you don't like this, but I don't care because it's going to be worth it. Because the childhood I had was, so rough because we didn't have enough and people were dying and overpopulation on Titan, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, there was Thanos.
And see, that's the thing with that one. There's no compassion is removed,
Selfish.
Yeah, exactly.
And before we move on, I would like to point out that he could have easily used the Reality Stone to create more food. Just saying. Could he not? Am I wrong?
Yeah, no,
I mean, Space Stone.
There's lots of arguments against what he was doing, but that's
so many.
That's why they call him the Mad Titan. He's not right in the head. Like they try to let you know that from the beginning.
That's true. Good. So they made it safe for him to be an idiot in some regard because you could totally use those stones for a better way. A better use of them. Next is Joker. I don't know too many deep instances of like him in the comic, but it just seems like he wants a good laugh. And of course he wants to kill Batman. Am I wrong? Does he have any motivation?
That's a complicated answer.
Yeah, really there's so many different Jokers.
It basically, I guess in taking all the different stuff I've learned about him, is that he feels like him and Batman have to coexist. Like that's why they will never, like he'll never kill Batman, and he knows that Batman will never kill him. But to him it's just it's a cycle that must continue. Basically, that's the way I've seen it in most stories.
Interesting.
Because Batman's such a complicated, deep character. Yeah, the villain also has to balance that out just as equally. So Joker is just as deep. I feel like Superman is pretty simple. Lex Luthor is pretty simple. So yeah, the villain and hero have to be balanced equally.
Yeah. Well, also we've got mental illness thrown in. The other characters here don't have mental illness as far as we can really like say, yeah, that's part of his story. But I feel like Joker has mental illness of various kinds affecting what he does.
Yeah, definitely.
So that just kind of messes up everything. There's no logic can only go so far when you have a mental illness that's strong enough to affect your, behaviors to the point of killing people. And
Superman is like super moral and super logical. The Joker, I guess, would be kind of super mentally ill, but they're not directly villain hero. Never mind.
Yeah, no. I think there is some stories though where they interact, right?
Yeah.
Joe, do you know of any?
Well, the animated show that they interacted. I think Superman pretended to be Batman and fought Bane, but I don't know if he interacted with. He beat the crap out of Bane. But
That's so cool.
and he even disguised his voice. He has like super control over his vocal cords, so he disguised his voice as Batman too.
He would.
Yeah, but I don't think the Joker and him interacted too much.
An animated one.
But they did a few times.
Wasn't there a comic where Superman killed the Joker?
Yeah, punched through his chest.
That's the Injustice comic, yeah. That's based on the video game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Finally, somebody killed him.
He's so annoying.
I love that bit in Lego Batman where they're having this like banter, Batman and Joker, and he's like, "I'm seeing other villains," and Joker's like all like hurt, and he's like, "What? I thought we had a thing." It was so funny. It's so great. I just rewatched Lego Movie 2 last night, and man, that is a awesome movie. Freaking love that movie.
I need to see it.
Funny.
Daisy's into watching Lego Star Wars stuff, so she asked for Star Wars. We watched Lego Star Wars. So
that's cute. Those are fun. Yeah, definitely check out Lego Movie 2. It is It's very, very rewatchable. I'll say that. All right, 2 more on this list. Lex Luthor. I may be wrong. Joe, correct me if you know more. Gabe, if you remember more from the animated. But I feel like he wants to be the alpha human by defeating Superman, who obviously is like the top, being on the Earth. He wants to be the top. Is that wrong? Is that right?
No, you're
Is there
right.
jealousy? What is it?
It's a challenge.
I think in like Smallville, I don't know if that Smallville's not canon, but I think as far as like Lex Luthor and Superman, like Clark Kent growing up together, I think there was more like the humiliation and jealousy in Smallville, and then that's what kind of developed. And then also Lex Luthor's angst against his dad.
Classic.
Kind of had a twist, kind of an Inception kind of twist to his evilness. Like he wanted to fight against his dad's evil by being more evil, kind of, and it got twisted. It was like double. Yeah, it was like a double. It was like Inception, like how he kind of tricked his trick. And he ended up being even worse than his dad.
And I don't remember that. I don't remember any dad stories there.
Yeah, it was. Cool. I remember it being pretty heavy about in the beginning with his, and then his dad died, and then that's what twisted him more.
Must be more evil. Last on the list is Dr. Doom. So this guy is pretty interesting. He's a really deep character. He actually has good intentions. He wants to rule the world, and he wants to turn it into a utopia. So he's a nice guy. He just wants to be king of the world. He apparently is already king of a fictional country. It's like Latveria or something like that. You don't know what the name is?
Yeah, that's it.
What is it called?
You said it.
Latveria?
Yeah, Latveria.
Okay. Latveria, yeah. So at some point, now there's a lot of different takes on him because he's been around since like the 60s. But at some point, he is king of this country. Like he's the dude. He's the president, or rather, he's like the he's a monarch. But he wants to expand his success, and he wants to rule the whole world and turn it into a utopia. And I'm those pesky Fantastic Four and other people keep getting in the way. There's a scene in one of the comics where he goes to Wakanda, and there's apparently a vibranium vault. He wants to go into the vault to get the vibranium, take it out, and use it to benefit his country and other places, and just kind of expose it to the world and again help the world, right, with vibranium, because it can do everything, right? Vibranium is literally like Marisuium is what we called it.
It really is.
When we did the Black Panther review episode like a long time ago, I think I called it Marisuium because it can do everything and anything you need it to do. But yeah, he wants to use it for good, and he has to face Bast, and Bast is like, if you're lying to me, you're going to die. What do you want to use this metal for? And he tells the truth, and I think he makes it out alive because he has, good intentions. And Bast can see all the things he's done. He knows all the evil that he's done, and he sees him killing and destroying whatever and people dying. But Dr. Doom rationalizes. He's like, is the bad I've done really much worse than all of mankind? I'm still going to do better than they've all done if you give me this medal. It's so funny. I'm like, wow, you really pulled a quick one on that deity. I tricked him.
Oh, okay.
Is that when the deity looks at the camera and he's like, he's not wrong.
Yeah, right.
Fourth wall.
That's funny. Yeah, so there's Dr. Doom. That's what he's up to. And during the whole writing of this episode, I got to the end and I realized, total patriarchy move, I didn't have any females in this whole episode. I just couldn't think of any female supervillains. And I feel like there's not a lot of great ones. There are some, but it's just, I don't know. All the big bads are always guys.
Yeah.
They're always big, thick,
come on, why is that?
burly dudes.
That's sexist.
It is. So I figured I'd be woke and balance it out for all my feminist friends out there.
We did have Hela in Thor Ragnarok. She was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Right. She was great.
She was the first one, because I asked my wife. I was like, all right, honey, who are the big bads that are females? And first of all, it was Hela, of course. So I got a little list. I got about 10 of them. So there's the Enchantress from Suicide Squad. Yep. Hela, of course. There's Mystique, Talia al Ghul, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, Harley Quinn, also Elektra, Emma Frost, and Dark Phoenix. Probably the baddest of them all.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, other than Dark Phoenix, arguably, and Hela probably, they just don't all live up to the grandeur of Thanos and Darkseid and, the big ones, Doomsday. I don't know why. Maybe that's the patriarchy right there.
Scarlet
Designing
Witch
comics.
went kind of crazy for a while.
Oh, really?
Scarlet Witch, she bends reality, and she
Oh,
got
yeah, that's
messed
right.
up, and she changes all of reality. So she's like,
oh no,
I would say she is the worst of any female villain because she's crazy. She's literally nuts. Kind of interested in that. What is that? Vision and
WandaVision. Sounds so weird.
I don't know about that, but I think it shows that's kind of catering to her kind of craziness, or
it might
loosening of reality, understanding of reality, because she's going back and forth from like 50s style.
Yeah.
And she changes all reality to be like, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I was wondering that too. You think there'll be like a pocket universe, maybe even in her head or in her dreams where it's like that? Or she changes reality?
I think she changes all of reality. And I'm comic books, at least from the little exposure I've had through our brother's comic books, she changes all of reality to whatever she thinks she wants it to be in the instant, and then she brings it back to what it was, and then I'm going to change this, and it's changed, and it's just back
it's
and
like
forth.
reality stone stuff there.
What's the ones that always changes?
The most anyway. Infamous thing she did was get rid of almost all the mutants in the Marvel universe there.
Well, let's move on to the next topic. Anti-heroes. Like them or love them. What do you guys feel about anti-heroes? And do you have any favorites?
I like that topic because it's kind of like all my favorite, like Riddick and Vegeta. They're those are like my two kind of go-to anti-hero. Hancock. I like those characters because they kind of evolve over the span of their exposure in the show.
They generally have character building.
Yeah, because you kind of have to have that. Venom in the movie, the latest Venom movie, not the canon at all. He's just bad.
Yeah.
But in the movie, at least, I kind of like how he's the anti-hero, evolves a little bit, makes a deal with the human. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. What about you, Joe?
I mean, anytime I think of anti-hero, the Punisher always comes to mind.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see.
He definitely has justification for things he does, right?
Yeah, usually when there's anti-heroes involved, there's usually guns involved too.
Yes. Remind me, what is the motive and what is the agenda behind Punisher? Like, is he just killing all the crime lords and stuff?
Well, he's like Batman, but he just uses guns.
Like the Mafia or something similar, like killed his parents, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's the movie years ago. I forgot the Highlander actor. They killed his family for some reason. I don't remember why. He survived. They're trying to kill him, and his family died. He survived, so his whole life is to get revenge.
Yeah, okay.
But if you remember the movie trailer, he said it's not vengeance, it's punishment.
Oh yeah.
Skadoosh.
Okay.
That's great. Well, the Punisher from the Daredevil show was awesome. His show was like crazy.
Yeah, I love that. It was so gritty. Like, he's kind of like Bruce Willis. Whenever I see that TV series of the Punisher with the Daredevil and stuff, he's always like getting cut up. He's always have some kind of cuts on him. And he's always getting bruised and sweaty and greasy. Yeah, he's always getting like ripped up. And
yes.
I mean, he's got to be covered in like cuts and bullet wounds and
Bruce Willis.
Jesus, like Bruce Willis.
All those air vents, man, mess you up. Yeah, it always like made me cringe at the end of those like late 90s action movies where they'd always like make out with their woman at the end of the movie. I'm like, he is disgusting right now. There's no way any woman in her right mind would do that.
It's the adrenaline.
Jeez.
Or the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Well, my favorite anti-heroes is definitely Riddick and Constantine. I really love that Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves. I just thought it was great.
I won't hold that against you, Daniel.
No, you're not a fan.
Well, I've seen what the real Constantine is supposed to be like since that movie. That's why.
The real one. Yeah. I am oblivious to most comics. I read comic book like articles here and there when I need to fill in a gap, like for the movies or things like that. But I've never read the comics.
Let me just ask you this: would you cast Keanu Reeves as Doctor Who?
You're asking the wrong person. I don't watch Doctor Who.
Okay.
Don't trick me with that.
Okay. I was just trying to think of another like British.
I'm gonna say no, but
British-based, like idea, and it's like you're gonna.
Constantine's British.
Yeah, then you're gonna pick Keanu Reeves for that.
It's all in Europe or what?
He's all over the place, but
I did not know that.
And some pretty dark stuff. I don't know if you really actually like like it beyond what
Yeah,
the
right, and the movie, the Keanu Reeves movie, is pretty demonic, and I don't like
Yeah.
satanic demonic stuff.
mm-hmm.
They pulled off a decent biblical worldview. It wasn't great. It definitely had flaws, and they of course added the whole spear thing in there to make it all work. But Gabriel, was it Gabriel Spear? What do they call it?
The Spear of Destiny.
Yeah,
Yeah, Spear of
that so epic.
That.
And Gabriel falling just like Lucifer.
Oh, jeez.
So, so as demonic and satanic as that movie was, I still enjoyed it, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Normally, I don't like stuff like that. Yeah. So I looked up the definition of anti-hero because I couldn't really define it on my own. So this is what it is: an anti-hero or anti-heroine is a main character in a story who lacks conventional heroic qualities and attributes such as idealism, courage, or morality.
Mm-hmm.
So they might do the right thing, but maybe the wrong way, or a way that, a hero would never be able to do with a clear conscience. I feel like Watchmen is like full of anti-heroes.
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
much all
They're all anti-heroes. There's no true heroes.
So obviously you guys saw the Marvel Captain America Civil War, right? So so the comic version has a really cool scene between Captain America and the Punisher because he's actually in that, because of course there's more characters in the comic version.
Right, a whole bunch more. Yeah.
But the Punisher had just killed somebody that I think was supposed to come on Cap's side, and he felt justified in doing it, and Cap got so upset he started beating up the Punisher, and he started telling the Punisher, he's like, why aren't you hitting me back, whatever. And the Punisher's all beat up and he's looking at Cap and he's like, no, not you. Anybody but you, and it's like, but it was a really cool, like, respect moment because it was like the Punisher totally did what he always does and Cap obviously didn't agree, but there was still that understanding. So it was an interesting way to show, okay, you got two heroes, but they obviously have two way different points of view of how to accomplish, fighting evil.
They would be like polar opposites, shouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They'd be like,
yeah,
total opposites in ways that they go about doing things.
To kind of tie back around to what we opened up with and go a little bit back to Star Wars, because Yoda's famous quote from episode 1, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. That's a line of thinking that you could probably follow in a lot of stuff as well, because kind of some of the motivations you read earlier, some of these are based on fears, fear of not getting, what was the example she kept using was princess, fear of not either getting the princess, fear of not having a situation that's involving the princess, fear, and so
losing it.
Yeah, so I feel like that little line that Yoda says is very, adequate for a lot of those situations. In biblical stuff, fear is the opposite of faith, so so I can totally see how that would lead you down the wrong path.
Yeah, it's just a slippery slope of one mindset to another, which leads to, actions or justification of actions to get some goal, which is again back to selfishness.
Yeah, there's a
I
really
personally
go
go ahead.
I'll just say there's a really cool fan-made poster that I've seen that shows the different words. It shows fear, and it shows Anakin as a little boy, and it shows anger, and it shows him in episode 2. And then it's fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and then it shows him in episode 3, and then leads to suffering, and it shows him as Vader. So it's like, yeah, it was one of the coolest fan-made posters I've ever seen.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I'd personally like to see a movie where there's a classic villain and a classic hero, and they actually, maybe midway or in the third act of a movie, they actually switch places through,
that'd be neat.
Character development, decisions and trauma and whatever.
We could have had that with Bray.
They could. I thought we were going to get that with Megamind. I thought that when they found Metro Man in his like secret lair, just chilling out and being a guitar bum, when they found him, I thought he was going to become a bad guy. Like I thought he was going to get so burned from being the superhero all the time that he would actually start doing bad stuff. And we saw Megamind, who was the villain, actually kind of getting a heart and turning and realizing he was just being an idiot, wanting to be evil all the time. So I was like, oh, it's going to happen. But it didn't. It was still a great movie. I love Megamind. Don't get me wrong. It's actually like probably my top 5 animated films. But I'd like to see like a more real down to earth, live action movie about how a superhero could go bad and why. And maybe a villain even flip-flopping his role through working out his motivations and realizing.
That's what George Lucas was trying to show with Anakin. Because, Anakin's supposed to be one path, the same path Anakin and Luke, it just shows that Anakin went one way and Luke went the other, basically.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in this discussion. I think it was a good, deep one, and it was awesome hearing you guys different kind of knowledge and different viewpoints of things like that. So thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Awesome. Well, for those of you listening, we'd love to hear back from you guys as always. So you can email us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on any of our social media posts for this episode. Let us know who your favorite villain is, or if you're just tired of villains and if you don't like them like me, let me know. And if you have any thoughts or corrections about this episode, we're always open to that too. Write us. We'd love to hear back from you. All right. Well, until next week, have a great one. If you like this show, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find our previous episodes there and listen whenever you want. We love to hear from our listeners, so if you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, you can reach us at tvvpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.